Hey everyone, this is Lindsay, and I'm hosting a new series on my page called Sentiments on Sex, where we have discussions about a wide range of topics with different variety of experts on those topics, and we just have discussions for you to listen and learn. So you can find me on Instagram at sexedwithlindsay. That's Lindsay, and my website, sexedwithlindsay.com. Now let's introduce our other wonderful participant here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adila Whitaker, also known as Docta Dee. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Docta Dee Affect, and I'm also on LinkedIn at Adila Whitaker. So look for me there. And I also do different events. I'll be hosting wind down hours on Tuesday, where we'll talk about ways that women of color can unpack all of their emotional baggage that comes with being a person in all of these professional and personal spaces.
That's awesome. I'm super excited to tune into that as well and drink some wine while I do it, probably. Of course, you have to. It's in the name. Okay, so now let's kind of just introduce the topic that we are going to be discussing today, which is like the responses to stress and trauma due to the Black community's continued exposure to social injustice and how that can affect intimacy and pleasure as well. So, can you just tell us like a little bit about just the research that you've done and compiled out there in terms of like pleasure gaps and pleasure disparities due to different traumatic experiences, especially, you know, with what's happening right now with all these social injustice for Black women?
Absolutely. As a Black woman in America, right, we find it really important to look at how, not only COVID-19 and police brutality, but also the blatant racism and murders that are taking place in the community impacting our mental and emotional health, right? And so we're talking about people who are supposed to walk through professional, personal spaces as parents, as siblings, as caregivers, as employees, but we have all of this trauma weighing on us and taking up all of our emotional and mental capacity. So, as you may already know, Black women are, significantly impacted by mental health.
So how do you, this just like brought up something to me that something that I actually watched a little while ago on John Oliver. It talks about bias in medicine in terms of gender and race. So do you have like any thoughts on about how Black women are treated in the medical profession, you know, with wanting to be treated and everything like that when they're, you know, have help that they need to go to a hospital or they need to go to a doctor?
I think that is a really, really great question. And I'm laughing because only 6 months ago, I just had my first child. And I was being terrified in going to the hospital because you hear so many stories about Black women going in to give birth and not coming back out of the hospital with their child. And I don't know why the mortality rate for Black women is so much higher than that of other women of color and our white counterparts. But it's disheartening to know that you're supposed to go through this really beautiful experience and you may not get the same treatment, you know, as your counterparts do, and you might not be able to leave the hospital with your child. Like, that giving birth is not an easy feat, right? But to have to think that, okay, at any moment something could go awry and my doctor may not consider my life as much of a priority as they would if I were white. That is a lot of stress and strain to put on someone who's bringing a life into the world, right? And
Absolutely.
that's just from the maternity perspective. Like, even with COVID-19, like, a lot of Black people are being, we're dying more from this disease than people because we're not getting the treatment that we need. And for specifically, I think a lot of it has to do with this stereotype that Black women are strong. And I think it kind of has a negative connotation because it leads people to believe that because we're strong, we don't need support. We don't need, medicine for pain. We don't need to be seen,
Yes.
or when we say that we're hurting, it's taken light of, because
Yes.
we're supposed to be these Teflon individuals that don't feel the same way other people feel, and that's bullshit. I it, I
Yes.
I don't. I mean, that's probably not the professional term to use, but it's not.
It's all good.
We bleed just like everybody else bleeds.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was watching that episode, and it prompted me to do some of my own research too with doctors. This is like a statistic, it's a fact that doctors tend to believe Black women less when they're in pain. It's ridiculous. And there is also another statistic that, like, it's a pretty significant amount of med students believe that Black people's skin is thicker than white people's skin. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah. So, like, very important, very not accurate medical information at all that doctors like hold on to and believe because of their own racial biases.
Absolutely. And I think that's the scariest thing about research, is that it's done by white people for white people, but it is then applied to every other race when it's not made for us. And so then we get people in positions like doctors who literally hold our lives in their hands when we go to them for treatment, and they allow, the research biases and their own personal biases to then give us neglective care.
Absolutely.
It's not okay, and it needs to be rectified.
What do you have any thoughts on that, like about if there's any, like, what possible ways that there could be that there could be a start in educating doctors more?
I think that, educating is one thing, but I also think that it's corrective behavior. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is, there's always new medical professionals coming into the realm. If you see something and you see somebody is doing something wrong or neglectful to a patient, regardless of their race, creed, or color, gender, say something.
Yeah.
Don't wait until that the patient's too far gone, or there's a point of no return that you get later on in your career, and you're like, oh, this one time back then. No, speak on it right then. Say something so that you can potentially save this individual's life. Because I just, I think the term cultural competency has been floating around, but I don't think an individual can ever really be competent on culture, because culture is ever evolving. And even though, I might be in a room full of Black people, our cultural identification could be completely different, because we come
Right.
from lineages, we come from different, geographical locations, we come, our cultural makeup is different. But I don't
Yeah.
think any such thing as cultural competency, but you can be culturally aware and culturally sensitive. And I think that mandated in these medical spaces, the same way that it's mandated that they get their license renewed, the same way that they go through training to find the new best practice, and they need to also do cultural awareness and cultural sensitivity training.
Absolutely. Like, if they don't participate, or if they don't actively participate in cultural sensitivity training, then they should not have their license renewed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed. They're definitely, I was talking to somebody about this a little while ago, and there needs to be intensive bias training. I don't think there's any bias training, first of all, in med school. And wait, when doctors join the profession, they join different hospitals, it should be mandatory for bias training to happen. I mean, I feel every 6 months at the least, in order to continue to unpack, like, doctor privilege and everything like that. And unpack their biases on women and on people of color, and on Black women especially. That absolutely needs to change. So, absolutely.
I have a sister who is a nurse, and I mean, we're talking about biases on the patient end, but it's also on her end as a helping professional. She's belittled. When she does some things there, she's asked for a white nurse to go behind her and double check and make sure she's done it, even though she may have trained, her white counterpart.
Yeah.
It's her word is not sufficient enough. And she's also expected to take mistreatment from patients that her white counterparts would not tolerate themselves, because she's supposed to be, she's supposed to be tough. She's supposed to have this strong exterior. And so why are you impacted by someone calling you a racial slur? That shouldn't bother you. That person's in pain. You're supposed to empathize with their plight. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I agree completely. Even thinking about how it just like in all realms about how like racial biases affect Black folks and Black women, and just in every single profession. I can't even imagine how just traumatizing and how impactful that can be on that individual's mental health. So do you have any like thoughts or sentiments or, advice on how, and why and how, Black women can heal from some of this trauma?
Absolutely. My initial thought is to tell them to go to hell, right? But we all have to keep our job and pay our But I think what I tell my clients is you have to talk about it, right? So we can't fix the world us as one individual. We cannot change the world as a whole, but we can change how we show up in the world, and we can change how we allow the world to impact us or not. And so it's about, building a strong support system, having helpful tools that you can use to combat the racism and biases and maltreatment that we know that we're going to face. I suggest, journaling, having, having a therapist. You may not see that person every week, but have somebody that you can talk to that can be a sounding board, that can help you reset your energy, so that you feel like you can go back and face, this again. And I also encourage, speaking up for yourself. Just because, you're in a job or you're in a living situation, you don't have to succumb to that treatment so that you stay in good favor. You're allowed to advocate for your own, well-being. You can tell somebody how to treat you, what you will tolerate and what you will not, and what the consequences will be if they choose to continue to behave this way. If it's in a workspace, document everything.
Yes.
What I say, and my family talks about me about this, because I tell all of my clients, hit them where it hurts. They understand money. If somebody is doing something to you, you document the hell out of that shit. And if they fire you, you get you a lawyer and you
and sue the shit out of them.
Take them for everything they have. Have them pay you so much money their grandchildren will have to pay you, because there is no reason you should be dealing with that when you're just simply existing and being Black. There is no reason. Document and sue their asses. They only understand and respond to money. When you're talking about somebody who is biased and racist, sometimes verbal communication does not help. Hit them in their pocketbook.
Exactly, because we live in such a capitalistic society, and those, the racial wealth gap and disparity is insane in America right now. And the people who tend to be on that, higher end of the pay spectrum are white, because of the hundreds and hundreds of years of disparity and white, with patriarchal systems and, white supremacy systems ingrained. That's absolutely where, they actually feel an impact, somewhat of an impact is through that. So, yeah. So
where you see corrective behavior is if their finances are impacted.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel about that though? Because do you think that person really, do you expect the the person who is being racist or biased to like really change, you know what I mean? If you, you know, when you have these demands and discussions with them, frank discussions, or what do you kind of, what would you, in, you know, your opinion, maybe kind of expect from that person?
I don't, as an individual, I try not to have expectations, right? Because
Yeah.
you set yourself up for failure. But what I do know is that if I feel empowered as a woman and as an individual, when I'm able to say to another person, this is what you did to me is not okay. And this is how I'm going to show you it's not okay. And you
Yes.
do it to the next person, but before you do it to them, you're going to think about how I made you pay for it, literally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So it hopefully helps stop the cycle of abuse and racial power for sure. You know, having a Black woman and having a Black folk be empowered to speak up, you know, hopefully will, you know, and hitting them where it hurts financially, you know, will help eradicate the cycle of, you know, the continued abuse, you know, the Black folks have to deal with. So I wanted to kind of pivot to Black women and physical responses to what's happening right now with the climate, and Black folks literally being murdered, and how, like we said, how impactful that is on like mental health, but physical responses. Can you talk a little bit further about that too?
Absolutely. So I pause because I don't even know where to start with that. Because I know, like, for myself, I've had to take incremental pauses in consuming so much of that media, because it's become so consistent that you turn on the news and it's another Black person whose light has been snuffed out, and you feel helpless, right? And as a, you know, as a wife, as a mom, as a aunt, as a sibling, I feel, you know, helpless because I have Black brothers, I have Black nephews, and I have, you know, I have a dad, and I'm just like, I fear for them when they leave the house, because I don't know if they're going to be able to come back home to me, if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, if they get pulled over by a police officer who just wants to make a point, or is having a bad day and they do or say or move, breathe wrong, that could be the end of them. And that, I think, is what's so scary to me. And I think that's what weighs so heavily on our mental health, is that we're all operating in spaces where that could be our brother, that could be our son, that could be our father. You know, like, George Floyd was a father and a son and a husband. It's like, that could be any of us, you know. And so, you know, Sandra Bland, that she was a Black woman, that, like, that could have been any one of us Black women. And so it just, seeing all of that and feeling like there's nothing that, like, I can do as an individual except for, like, speak on it. Like, I can't, I'm not a judge, can't, you know, I'm not the president. I don't have that level of powerful change. So it just, you feel very small, you feel very microscopic, and you feel helpless in a sense, because all we have are our voices, and sometimes they try to stifle those too.
So from what you're saying, I feel like it's just a heightened sense of fear right now, like for every Black individual. How how does, because I just like can't imagine, how does somebody carry that weight around? You know, do you have resources to try to, you know, alleviate some of that pain through, you know, any sort of like mental health exercises or anything like that, to just help cope and help unpack all of the trauma?
I I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
try to take a step back, right? And I think I've even done posts like this on my social media about, like, ways to take care of your mental health during, you know, everything that's going on. Like, I try not to consume only the news. Like I know, they heard like you've heard of like trash TV. I try to consume
Yes.
in between, all the COVID and the police brutality murders and all the racism and even the election is just like it's just this
Yeah.
things that are just emotionally daunting. And so I try to take a step back and fill that space and that time with love and with the people around me. I'm blessed to not be co-vacationing alone. So I try to, spend time with my partner and spend time with my kid so that I don't feel empty, because it does kind of leave you with this just hollowness when you're consuming all of that. Um, so I think that's the biggest thing, is like making sure to be selfish and take care of yourself so that you're not depleted, because it will deplete you. And I honestly think that is the motive. They want us to see that they can kill us at any moment and any time, and there's nothing that we can do about it, so that we give up. But we have to take care of ourselves so that we remain strong and resilient, so that we can stay and live to fight the good fight another day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that was what you just said was amazing. I got like goosebumps from that. I absolutely like support that 100%, that you need, take care of your mental health first. Absolutely. It's the most important thing. You are the most important thing, like for you. And you can't show up for anybody else if you can't, show up for yourself. Absolutely. So, and do you want to talk a little bit also like in your research in terms of like pleasure in during like times of trauma for Black women and pleasure and everything like that?
So what I've seen two things which I think are really interesting, right? So during COVID-19, like it's recommended that we social distance, which for those of us who are not couples means that like our booty call season is put on pause for most of us who are wanting to take it seriously in that way. But I've have couples and patients who have like an increased sex drive due to like their stress response, and I've also seen people who have like lost their sex drive altogether. So for those who are like have a heightened sex drive as a response to stress, I would say, just check in with your partner, make sure that y'all sex drive is on the same wavelength, and just, be creative in your sex, and also, be safe. There are a lot of people getting pregnant right now because we are home and no one can go out and buy condoms, and so people are
People can't even go up. My
there's
God.
an influx in babies by the time like COVID is over.
It's going to be like a baby boomer generation, like coming out of COVID.
Exactly. So I would say just, take care of yourself and make sure that you're, being creative. I would say try new things, right? This is like the perfect time
Yes.
for, I mean, this is right up the alley, exploring and trying new things. I've also, I had with a couple, and one of my clients, they like wigs. And I was like, why don't y'all play Stranger in the House? Like, you can't go to the bar, but like, go to a different room in the house and put your wig on and get dressed, play, like, do like a role play. And they came back and was like, that was like some of the best sex they've had in a long time. And I was like, yeah, because it wasn't like feel like you were stepping out. It's fun.
Exactly. Like feeling like it's the same routine can be so daunting sometimes. And especially, when folks do have, like a higher sex drive. And right now it's especially, I think it is beneficial and important to be open to trying new things as well, because, eventually the same old is going to get boring.
Right.
And, you're not going to be satisfied by that. So, taking this opportunity and this time when we're on quarantine to try something new and to try new experiences with yourself or your partner is, I definitely feel, yeah, is absolutely beneficial.
And then for those whose sex drive has either like decreased or has completely depleted, give yourself some grace. You're dealing with a lot of shit, and anybody you know, with reasonable understanding, could understand and empathize with your decreased sex drive. So if you have a partner, communicate that with them and let them know what's going on. And then maybe together y'all can figure out other ways to be intimate. You can play board games, you know. I think Amazon is still delivering, and I love Amazon. And I found my sister sent me a coupon book that you can use with your partner. So we've like tried to incorporate that to like be different. So like, you know, give your partner a pedicure or have them give you one. You know, massages. What I found, which was really fun and really like increases intimacy, letting your partner wax you.
Oh, interesting.
Because then they get to like they, you know, that's their playground anyway, and then
Yes.
letting them, you know, do different shapes and designs for what is sexy to them, and it's a really intimate moment. So that is fun as well. And then try to incorporate, you know, ice, whipped cream, honey. Those are good things as well. And it doesn't have to be, you know, penetrative intercourse. You can do
Yes.
intimate, just spend quality time with each other if you're not feeling up to having sex, and just verbalize and that if that person, if they love you and if they accept you, should be okay with that.
Absolutely. And I think, like what you said, not having to have like penetrative sex, building intimacy right now is the most important thing that somebody can do if they're experiencing a low sex drive due to stress, and absolutely giving themselves grace and time to heal, time to unpack. Do you have any like I know you mentioned journaling. I just was wondering if you had any other sort of maybe exercises for, you know, for women and Black women, especially who are dealing with the physical responses of the climate right now. If there's any sort of like activities or exercises that they can do to help heal through their pleasure and unpack trauma to help their sex drive and their pleasure drive.
Right. I encourage, for my intimacy coaching clients, I encourage like weekly masturbation. And
Mm-hmm.
that is to, you know, explore and get to know your own body and be comfortable in your own sexual preferences, and to also you know, just give you some self-love time, right? You have to know what you like and how you respond in order to communicate that to somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
weekly masturbation. I also think it's helpful to get different toys if that's what you're into. You know, some people like toys, some people are fine with their hands, whatever floats your boat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also really geared toward meditation. I love meditation and yoga. So I know it sounds so hippy dippy, but they really work. Because
Yeah, they do. Staying in the present moment. That's the most important thing when you're trying to pleasure yourself, I feel.
I also and I think this is hard for some people, spend time by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because and this is the perfect time to do it, to have some time of like self-reflection and self-discovery, and just really fall in love with yourself all over again. You know, just spend, I mean, if you can spend like an hour a week by yourself, and just, you'll see the progress that you're able to make when you're able to have that time, not where you're planning or thinking or doing something, just by yourself, whether you're like, if you're outside and you're walking, or like, you know, just with you yourself, or, you know, me, myself, and I, just be in
Yeah,
progress.
absolutely. Yeah, doing something that like you yourself enjoys, not like doing something for somebody else, even if you may be alone while you're doing that. Like giving yourself a nice bath and letting yourself have a glass of wine and read a good book that you like. Absolutely, absolutely agree. I think that is a great way to, yeah, because you do have to learn how to spend time with yourself and get to know your own self better. And I feel like that really not the only way, but a pretty significant way of doing that is spending time and being by yourself, so you can start to know, even especially outside the bedroom too, what you like and what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. That will increase happiness, and then, therefore start to increase sex drive and pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
You could have a glass of wine. I'm like, if you need 2 or 3 glasses, trust me. Man, it happens. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, especially now. So I'm trying to think of something else. I feel like we've talked a lot about like the topics that we've wanted to discuss. Is there anything that you like anything else any other topic that you want to dive into?
So, I have a question for you. Actually.
Yes.
So I know, so you consider yourself to be an ally of the BLM movement.
Absolutely.
As an ally, what is something that you think is important for other allies to know, and suggestions that you have for them for how they can be active allies in the movement?
Absolutely. I think number one, to listen, and not just listen, like actively listen to the Black community, like listen to what they need from us. I also think it's very important to not ask a Black person what they need from us right now, because they are already having to go through just an insufferable amount of things from the past from to the future as well, like what's going to happen. Am I even going to be alive today, after I walk down the street? So I would definitely encourage white folks to not ask a black folks about like how they can help, if that makes sense. Like, we need to take time to unpack our own privilege. We need to take time to unpack our white privilege, and we need to be doing that ourselves. We don't need to be asking the Black community for anything right now, because they are going through more than enough, and we need to be the ones to listen. We also need to stop taking up space as white allies as well. I think it is good that, companies are, supporting like the Black Lives Matter movement and everything. However, I think if they are true allies and they're really showing, then they need to show that they are having like leadership positions available for Black folks, and white folks need to step down in order to have Black folks show up. Like, I think it's very important that, whoever Joe Biden picks, and I don't want to get like too political with this election, but there needs to be a Black woman. And I've had legit arguments for, other people who, are supporting Elizabeth Warren. I did really like Elizabeth Warren, but like there needs to be showing like of like the significance of, having a Black woman, as part of the ticket. And Elizabeth Warren needs to step down, if that makes sense. So there needs to be like almost like a movement of us stepping down from leadership positions and letting Black folks rise up. If you really want to be like your company, Amazon company, whatever, really want to be a true ally, then that's what you need to be doing right
now. I love that. So I know that the position that you take might not be favorable to like some of your white friends and colleagues. So what advice do you have to other white allies that are out there who might be experiencing adversity from their own family and support groups when they're starting to speak out and advocate for Black lives?
Absolutely. And, if you have that's such an interesting question, and a good question for sure, because I've definitely seen like my partner, and having to go through some things with his family, and that I'd say, don't entertain that shit. Like, you still need to speak out against racism wherever you see it. That's been the problem. Does not matter who it is, you need to be speaking up. And honestly, it's okay to cut racist people out of your life. It's okay. If you have somebody who doesn't support you and you've tried to get through to them and it's just like, talking out and it's just not getting to them, then you don't have to you don't have to associate yourself with them anymore. And this is the time, like, racist people will be called out. They will be fired. They will be, excised from the family, exiled from the family, and excised from allies and white allies' lives. That's the way it needs to be, because there can be no more entertaining this shit at all anymore. And also, yeah, I was going to say something else, but I think I forgot. But that's kind of my sentiment on him. And just, if you have a family member who's just not, just don't, at some point, it's not worth it to like waste your breath on somebody. Just cut them out. You try, especially if you feel like you tried your best to educate them, give them the facts. It's just unfortunate, but some people are so brainwashed that they just won't listen. It doesn't matter who it is. It's going to be your own, it can be your own mother and father, like, honestly. But, again, this is the time to cut that racist bullshit out of lives and not entertain it anymore.
I agree. I think this is the perfect time to call out racism and submissive responses to racism. I think that, we are done with, being responsible for other people's ignorance. And I think that we need to say something when we see something. And if that, whoever that person is, whether it's a Black person who is being submissive or a white person who is choosing to be racist, and they're not trying to learn something different, and you've tried to educate them, then it might be time to, like I said, if you tried to call that person out, they need to be removed from from
Yes.
Because I'm like, if you're not here to play, then you're in the way.
Exactly. And I think also, like, this, for like white counterparts and white allies right now, it's not about us. Stop with the performative allyship. It's not about us right now. And I don't care if you're uncomfortable. We don't care if you're uncomfortable. You need to say something, because you're able to do that and not have to worry about being reprimanded in a horrible way by somebody else. Like, that privilege needs to be used for the Black community right now, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, it's not about at all. Like, I just hate the performative allyship with, like, Black Square. And it's like, okay, where are you now? Are you, like, calling your local, like, government? Are you going to town halls? That now needs to be time where that needs to be, like, the plan, for like this movement. I feel, especially with white allies, be speaking in your town hall meetings, speak out against the injustice, call out racist cops, call your congressperson, call, your state representative, get involved in the grassroots movement, because that's how things are really, really going to change.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a 24-hour thing that white people need to be doing to unpack their privilege. It's nonstop, and there's no excuses to stop. And I know that can seem overwhelming, but again, we have not had to deal with over 400 plus years of systemic racism and oppression. This is nothing. We need to be doing this, and we need to be showing up for the community. Like, if you care about another human being, you need to be showing up for this movement.
I agree. I mean, I love what you were saying, like the action items for people to do. And I also want to add, like, stop calling the police on Black people for being Black. The police is not here to, well, they're not supposed to be here to push over your racist agenda. Like, I think that's why the whole, like, Karen thing has so like is resonating so hard with me, because I know what it's like to be in a workspace and to say something to a white woman and to have them cry, and then it's like, oh, Dila, you were mean. Fuck that. I wasn't. Yeah. You hear what you said to me? And I'm like, I do not care about your white woman tears. Like, I just
exactly.
And I'm just like, I think that's why I think that's why so many Black people can resonate with the whole Karen term, because it happens to us all the time. Black women are aggressive and they're abrasive, and we're standoffish and combative, and Black men, they're vultures, and they're mandingos, and we're over sexualized. And I'm just like, we're fucking human beings. We are human beings, and we are just trying to live and pay taxes and die. Like that, we are on our
That's
time.
true.
Like, we're just trying to fucking survive. Like, let us live. Can we live, please?
Exactly. And that's another aspect of having to unpack your white privilege. That's why it needs to be a constant 24-hour thing. And again, if you see somebody doing that, because plenty of times we've seen on the news where this has been a public situation, where we've seen a white woman call the cops, on a Black person because of their Blackness, because of who they are, and because of their skin color. Like, white people, you just can't sit on the sidelines and observe. You need to call that person out. You need to be like, hey, you turn the fucking phone off. Like, literally hang up the fucking phone right now. That's another thing. Like, step in to protect. Like, I really find the stories I hear of white folks like shielding, like literally shielding, like where there's like the Black community, then there's like a line of white folks, and then there's the police. Like, that's exactly, like, symbolically and literally what we need to be doing right now as white allies. Like, that's what we need to be doing.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is. I love seeing those. I think that that's the move. That's what needs to happen. Like, if a friend asks me like what I can do to help, I just send them like a picture like that. It's like, that's what you need to be doing.
Right.
To help.
Yeah. I love that. Because I get goosebumps when you say that, because I've only been alive for 3 decades, but I have so many stories of how I have been just myself, right? So just me. I could imagine if this was a room full of women, like just the stories that I have of being, marginalized, and being blocked for being racist and being categorized. I remember fresh out of college, I moved to New Jersey, and I was working for a mental health agency, and I was the only Black person. I mean, I think the only other Black staff there were like, I want to say there weren't any Black staff. I want to say like I was the only person in this. It was a private mental health agency, and I was the only Black therapist, and a white counterpart told me that she was going to get my Black ass sent back to where I came from because they didn't want niggers there.
Oh my God.
I told the supervisor, who was a white woman, and she told me, well, she's been having a hard time. Her boyfriend are getting, they're fighting and they're trying to move, so she's just stressed out. Where am I supposed to care about her stress when she's doing racial slurs at me? Like that's creating a hostile work environment.
Immediately fire. That's how it should be. Like, immediately. Not even anything else. Immediately fire them.
They try to explain it away, and I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Like, I was maybe 21, and I was just like, how is this okay that I'm supposed to endure this type of treatment and still be expected to perform my job to the best of my ability when I'm being met with hostility from a coworker, and I'm not getting any support from my supervisors. And I escalated it even up to her boss, and they were just like, oh, well, I'm sure that she didn't mean anything by it. And I'm just like, I cannot believe that they are trying to to justify her racism. And they ended up terminating me because they said that I was not working well with my team.
White silence is violence.
Yes. And I remember feeling like, I remember getting like having this wave of like anger over me because I felt silenced and I felt unheard, I felt unseen, and I felt, devalued, and I felt invalidated. I'm just like, this is not okay. Like, y'all should not be able to do this to not just to me, but to anybody. This is not okay. And I didn't know how to tell them that it was not appropriate, because I felt like I had been verbalizing my, advocacy for myself, and it was not, it wasn't heard or it wasn't accepted. And I just felt like the only thing that would get their attention is if I just like threw like a hissy fit, you know what I'm saying? And I just remember like getting in my car and like breaking down and like calling my mom and telling her like, I'm up here by myself and I don't know why this is allowed to happen to me. And my mom, all she could say was like, I'm sorry, but you can come back home. Like there is no response to things like that. And the sad thing is, it happens to so many of us every single day. And the only thing that our families can say is, I'm sorry, but you can come home, because we can't do anything about it. Because we're not, I mean, that's what racism is being in positions of power where you can oppress another race. And that's why people are like, oh, well, Black people are racist too. We can't be racist.
No,
We're
you can't
in
be.
positions of power to suppress you. So we can't be racist. It's a construct that does not work out in our favor. And it's so disheartening, because I'm like, I mean, even my nieces and nephews are of age to work, and they're combating with their own racism. I'm like, that was years ago for me when that happened. I'm like, but it's 2020 and it's still happening today. And I mean, contrary to what my mom said, like, and no, nothing against my mom, but I'm like, no, don't just take that. Like, go and you tell them, this is not okay. I'm not going to take this. And if you choose to fire me, I will get an attorney. Period. And like, people cannot keep doing this. I do not want to be having these same conversations with my daughter when she is of age to work. That is not okay.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine. And there needs to be like a revolution. Like there needs to be systemic change. And I really hope that this will continue and build the change that is needed, because movements like this, and I think this is the movement of our lifetime. Like, I really do think it will be the movement of our lifetime. Like, you're either going to be on the right side or the wrong side of history, so you better think real hard about what fucking side that you want to be on when it's written in the history textbooks as like the next civil rights movement in our time. Like, especially with some of the older folks that need to see, do you want to be, oh yeah, I can't even get into that right now. Just like the old. But I love what you said about how white people can't be racist, and I have said this so many years, that exactly what you said. If you are part of a power system, if you're part of a system that oppresses people and you benefit from that system, you're an oppressor. You like, and that person who is being oppressed cannot be be racist toward towards you. Like, that's, or that person, you cannot happen. Like, there's no such thing as like being racist against a white person. You know what I mean? There's no such thing, because this whole entire country was built on white supremacy and oppression. Yeah. So I just hate, I hate women. I 100% of the time go off if I see that shit on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, what about racism against white people? Doesn't exist. Never happened. Like, literally, I'm like, does not exist.
It's a teachable.
It's harmful.
And like, I think you said white people can't be racist, but Black people can't be racist.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, like, what? Yes, I mean, Black people cannot be racist towards like white people, because they are living in a system that oppresses them.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what you said.
I mean, And I think the sooner that white people realize that, and I think the sooner that they realize how they're walking through life with privilege, and I don't think you realize the privilege that you have until you like take the time to learn, like you did, right? Or
Yes.
you have like Black friends, like actual friends, not just people you work with, like actual
Yes.
friends, or you have a Black child and you see, you know, okay, like the world treats my child differently.
Yes.
I think when you start to actually see it, you're like, oh shit, like this is still happening. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the first time your child comes home because someone calls them the N-word, or the first time that, you know, someone calls your child ugly because of their skin pigmentation, you know, like,
Yes.
you know, they say something about their nose or their lips, you know, whatever, you know,
Yes.
stereotypical Black feature they're wanting to comment on. Like, the first time you have to console your child for something like that, I think, is when you start to see it. And then, like, even when they get older, and you have to tell your child, like, if you get pulled over, you do not talk back to the police officer. You put your hands on the steering wheel. If you reach for something, you verbalize what you are doing. You don't just reach. I mean, I remember riding in the car with a white friend, and we got pulled over, and she was like mouthing off, and I was like, I was like, girl, I was like, you don't get us in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean, my Black friends and I, we call it like slave mentality. Like, oh, you're gonna get, like, oh no, you're gonna, like, don't say that, because like it it does feel very punitive, because we know that at any moment those police officers can end our lives, and that, you know, we don't have the courtesy or the we don't feel empowered in those moments sometimes to speak up for ourselves, because that could be the last thing we ever say.
Exactly.
And, you know,
Horrible.
that's something that I think is important for white people to realize, is that you don't realize the level of power that you have until you see how powerless your Black counterparts are. So take the time to pay attention. Look, I mean, if you see somebody getting pulled over, or you know, a police officer messing with a Black person, stop and pay attention. And
Yes.
like you said, be that buffer.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what needs to happen, you know, and especially, you know, they need to be accountable for any white person needs to like hold that they have been a part of a system that is oppressive, and they need to hold themselves accountable to that. Even if you think, you know, I'm the, you know, like epitome of this and helping others and loving other people, and I would never do that, blah blah blah, you still have benefited from a system that oppresses other people, and you have to acknowledge that and unpack that and learn how to take away some of your power to give it to the Black community. Absolutely, that's what needs to happen.
I completely agree with you, Lindsay. I could not have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's about it, huh?
Yeah, I think we went through a lot of different, like such a awesome wide range of topics that are so important right now and may not be as talked about right now too, especially with responses to stress and pleasure and everything like that.
Absolutely. So I mean, if I had to just leave you guys with anything, it's just like, I know, you know, white, Black, brown, purple, orange, green, we all have a lot going on, right? This is a very difficult time. You know, like I said, with COVID and police brutality and you know, everything that's going on. So just take care of yourself, love on yourself, love on one another, and give yourself some grace in dealing with everything that, you know, that you have going on, in addition to everything the outside work. You know, we're all trying to do work from home and parent, and a lot of us are trying to do diets while we're on our COVID vacation. Just give yourself some grace and love on yourself, because you need to be full so that you can pour into everything else that you're doing.
Absolutely. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? That's like the terminology. I just read that yesterday. I was like, dang, that's so true.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you all so much. And you want to say your Instagram handle one more time?
Yes, I am on Instagram and Facebook at Docta Dee Affect, and I am also on LinkedIn, Adila Docta Dee Whitaker.
I'm on Instagram as Sex Ed with Lindsay, and you can find me at sexedwithlindsay.com.
All right, thanks you guys.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The Doctor.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
And my website, the doctordeeaffect.org. Sorry.
No. We're good. All right. Thank you, everyone.